and it's already been talked about a bit, so I'm not sure if there's any contentious issues or anything. I don't even know if we need to talk about anything. We'll see if this is a good idea. I think I got some things to respond to, but it doesn't seem like anyone's looked at that back and said bad things. If anybody has anything that needs to be addressed, I can try to answer it.
I guess we can at least use this session as a call out to everyone. If you haven't looked at that yet. Please take a look and see if you have any feedback. Make sure you get that in there. Otherwise,
so the nice thing would be to get it in before other stuff, especially as soon as the API, because you want to bump the microversion every API change. So for that reason, it'd be good to get it in early. And the code is written, it needs review, but it's not toy code or anything. I mean, that ported Manila's code, which is what they're using right now in production. So it might be, mostly ready, modular, whatever people find it. So the thing could move fast, it just needs attention, and people want to look at the spec at least. I think Mike said that he saw Sean's question, otherwise he would just read the spec. So it's probably close, and then the code. If you can and you're interested, pay attention and look at it and play around with it. It's also good to get it in early because if there's a flaw in it, we'd like to find it earlier rather than later. Like when we're about to release, and there's every chance that there's stuff that needs fixing. So the more people can beat up on it, the better.
Are there any plans to add specific Tempest tests for this?
Yeah, so I went to a session that QA ran yesterday about Nova, and they already have merged microversions, and so they're dealing with Tempest, and I don't know, did they have it turned on yet, or they're waiting for some plumbing?
I think they were waiting.
Yeah, so they're doing stuff in both Tempest, and then the Nova has to do some things, some patches to put some bits.
Okay.
To get the Tempest test working for Nova, and then it should be pretty transparent how I need to do that. I can do all that with somebody either wants to, or if you know a lot about Tempest, I don't. So if anybody wants to do it, or has messed around with standard Tempest tests, help would be welcome. And help us welcome on any of this. But to answer your question, they're solving all the problems for us. I mean,
Nova doesn't even have it in yet. So
they don't have it in yet.
I guess the only thing that concerns me about this is really this is a pretty big change.
Well, how do you test
how do we CI it and make sure that moving forward, not only do we not break something by adding another microversion, but that we haven't already broken.
So one of the things that they're doing is you look at where you're changing the API, and this can be tricky. It's a shame that's not went through some of this, but Tom, I don't know if you're paying attention to Vanilla to know they're paying. But so when you go from microversions, say 7 to 8, you're adding a new parameter to list or something. So you want to look at all the tests and exercise that, and test them at 7 and test them at 8. And so that's what they're doing, is they're explicitly looking at the boundaries of changes. What tests exercise that area and run them all at 7 and run them all at 8. So you can't run everything at every microversion level. They said they tried it in 12 hours. So you can't. They also were going to do some stuff, not as gating, but as a periodic test run. A CI would be great. I think that's a matter of someone owning up the resources and maintaining it. Yeah, I won't raise my hand to that at this point. But if you CI'd it, you could run through 12 hours of tests, right? You could test everything for every version because you weren't in any great hurry.
It seems like it's breaking the model of CI then a little bit to a certain extent, right? By not covering everything.
Do they have a policy of what is required to be covered in the CI and what can be?
It's more of a patch by when you change the when you change the API, you bump the microversion, and then when you review that code, you got to kind of know what needs to be changed. So it's work.
Having a functional test, explain that. Sure, how much for the 12 hours is Tempest,
Well, I think it's just the matrix. I mean, as you have numbers of, I mean, it's not going to take 12 hours if you only have one microversion. It's exactly as long as it takes today. It's when you have 50 microversions that you have to run 50 iterations of every test.
But it won't be every test, right? You can do a selective list
Right,
of
right.
what is applicable.
That's what Nova's doing. But I mean, if you really wanted to be thorough and you had some sort of offline system to do it in no hurry, you could run every test on every microversion at some period out of this.
Yeah.
But that's resources and maintenance. Sorry, I can't alter it with something else. So that's the thing.
Yeah, we should call it out.
Well, yeah, no, and actually what I need to do is create sort of what to pay attention to in reviews, how to review code, what to look for these things and make sure these tests are changed. I would assume changing the API, which requires a spec anyway, it should be called out the spec, the Tempest test, be changeable, which ones, what Tempest test this feature you're changing, and so then when you submit the patch, maybe there should be a dependent patch to change the Tempest tests.
So how complicated are the unit tests that are associated with this too? Because we do a lot of API tests in our unit tests, and most of that we're faking out.
Yeah. I just unit tested like the functions that are added to version lifting and stuff like that. But I mean, everything's stolen. I stole it.
Yeah.
The unit test, like I stole the code. So, but I use the guidance of Nova, and there's actually some more stuff in Nova I can get.
So what are we going to expect as reviewers looking at a new microversion after this shifts in terms of unit tests then? How do we ensure that we're getting coverage for the new one and the old one? And
well, I guess you might ask for a unit test. So let's say you're adding a parameter to a call or something like that. And, a unit test that says, at this version it should pass, and at this version it should fail, or a specific unit test around the change.
Well, I think some of this is probably going to be well suited by the functional test idea, right? Where you can do kind of, because some of our unit tests is to start up a service and use API calls, all that stuff. I assume it's going to integrate with functional stuff. That might be a good place to do this.
That kind of needs to be worked out as sort of how to review changes in the microversion. I think Nova might have started down that road. I think it was on somebody's to-do list at the session the other day. So once again, hope we can learn from other people's experience. And I know when I've asked in Nova and Matt Ridden and Jay Pipes, people who worked on this, they're all wanting to help. And the guys in Manila trying to help. So keep asking them and asking them. So the other gotcha is I hacked out the client to do some testing, but the client, I haven't done patching the client to use microversions. I started on it and it seemed hard, and then I talked to Dan and said it is hard. It was harder than the server side in some ways, so I'll work on that next week. Get that up. His recommendation was to sort of get it built at the same time.
Yeah, did you say they kind of let the customer do
They underestimated the work, so I mean, you could do a lot of testing with Perl, and you can mess with it right now without a client. But.
So I think this is one of the things that we shouldn't land the Cinder side without having the client available and almost ready. So that way we can actually test it manually. And
I think put a placeholder patch for the client, and then it depends on for the road. I don't know. I want to avoid certain things. Somehow we can make note of all that. But that was Ben's recommendation.
Okay. Yeah.
So, but I've got cycles to work on that. So next week. If there's links, if you haven't read it, there's Sean Dake did a nice explanation of what it is. And anybody have questions about how it all works or what the dealio is, or there's a decorator you can use in there to say, API version greater than 2.7, and then you run that function if the request is for 2.8 or gives you the ability to toggle client side.
So the microversion, if I remember correctly, that is not sent or set on a request. It's set when you instantiate the client
Now,
from the Nova client, right?
it is sent every request.
Right, but
But when you
that
instantiate,
version is set
So-
when you create the client object, the one that you requested.
In the Python code, yeah.
Yes, in the Python
Yeah.
code.
you want to create a client that runs version 6.27, and every request asks for 6.27.
I guess what I was trying to get at is that when you use the client and you say create volume, you don't pass in the version in the create volume column.
Yeah.
It's when you instantiate the client object.
And the client can be written, if there's something that they recommend doing it, but that's, yeah, you set it once, yeah.
So essentially every client, what microversion does the client?
No, so how it works is this, you send a header in your request saying, Cinder API microversion, and whatever version you want. If you don't send that, it falls back to what we have now, version 2.2. So clients that are completely unaware of this will get the behavior you have right now. But as we move the API, every time you make an API change, you bump the microversion. So then when we land the code, it'll be 2.1, and then it'll be 2.2, 2.3 as API changes. If your client is aware and wants it, you just say, give me version 2.8 or whatever it is you're capable of handling, and you'll get 2.8. If you ask for 2.8, the server can only go to 2.6. It'll send you back a 403 and say, I can't. And it's discoverable, so you can hit the root endpoint. It'll tell you what the current supported version is, what the supported versions are, what the current one is, it'll be the highest one. So the logic can be put into, it'll be in the Cinder client, and anybody's specific client can have that logic do the same thing.
So for the driver perspective, there's only one version we are supporting, and the highest that we declare that our driver can support.
Well, it's really for the API. The way it works right now is the decorator is only around things that inherit from VC controller. So you won't be toggling things in your driver.
We set one version and that's the version.
Right. Now what toggles is, so let's say we add, we're adding something, replication, and we wanted to, change the way replication is called. There were some things that people wanted in replication V2 that we said not yet, but we're going to do it later. So at some point we'll add an API, we'll bump the version to 2. Whatever, and then there'll be a call to call replication auto failback or whatever the new thing is. So your driver will have to implement what is called. And if it doesn't, when Cinder shifts with the API bump, it's got to shift with the driver support, or you obviously the base driver will either give a pass or not implement it, just as it does today.
And the OpenStack client is just going to call the Cinder client, so that won't be affected with microversion.
I don't know. I haven't looked at the OpenStack client, but I assume that it's been solved already by the people. Ironic, Vanilla, Nova, all use it. So there's no, we're not trying to figure out.
How do you post Nova to call the microversion instead of having it accepted in Nova?
Well, Nova picks a Cinder client to use, right? It says requirements Cinder client greater
And
than.
if we want to force Nova to use Cinder client to a specific version, we'll have to patch Nova to say when you create the Cinder client, request that version.
It already has Cinder version.
Yeah, that's
That's the
That's
API
V1,
version,
V2.
not the micro version.
I'm trying to get rid of any more V1, V2 style things.
So for example,
Yeah, it is something new. We have to change Nova and add the micro version that we want to
especially
support.
when Nova needs to call new API things, we'll have a requirement that Nova uses 4.5 or as we bump the client, Nova will have the requirement for the client, that Cinder client will support that.
So we could have situations where we need to ship a client soon. because of the changes in order for Nova to make use of that. So we might have to be even more stringent about when we do the Cinder client releases.
There's no release schedule, right? I mean, we can.
Right.
We can, yeah. But that is a change from how it has been.
Yeah.
We've always given a watch, we don't get a situation where you need to be upgrading Nova all the time. You've got to sit there for vice versa.
Right.
Because people don't want to be upgrading Cinder and Nova long term, they don't want to be upgrading, necessarily regularly.
She'll have to be
Well, that's when the fallback
the fallback, yeah. So
is used.
there may need to be logic on the Nova side. The example is we change the Nova Cinder API the way we talked about this morning. Nova's going to have to be able to call Cinder, and if it doesn't support these things, fall back and call the old stuff.
Yeah.
So that there'll be a lot of code in Nova to talk about. But they didn't balk at it this morning, so I guess
So when client is calling the API, it just lists the microversions and chooses the highest one that's understandable.
Yeah. So one thing, who did this?
Kind of negotiation or
Ironic when it done this way, but they cache. They do a version discovery to see what is supported. They cache it. They find out what's the highest level between the two of them, and then they use sheepdog or some Python library that does caching, local file.
and Manila.
What's that?
And Manila, what is other projects?
I don't know what Manila's doing. I don't. Maybe they're not even doing caching yet, or maybe Manila's the one. One of them, somebody's already got a little caching thing going. So you don't do discovery every call or anything, negotiation every call. You just find out once, cache it.
The good thing is hopefully we won't be affecting the Nova taking API on a regular basis, so they'll only have to care on the changes, on the version function.
Right. I mean, the good news is it makes it possible to change the Cinder Nova API, but we're not going to be doing it.
So can they downgrade Cinder? They have a certain version and they're doing some operations and then figure out this is not working for them. Can they downgrade? What happens?
They can request an older version of the API
Yeah.
when they create the client.
But it can be some, I mean, you may have done some operations that are only applicable to the new API.
Yeah.
So you're on your own.
That's just
And
like
if it doesn't
downgrading.
work, you request the old one and you don't get the new feature.
Client side, it's easy to go to downgrade. You can just ask for older versions. Server side, you can't really downgrades. Yeah, database backward.
It can really be in a mess.
You can't. That's not really good for today as far as.
What happens, for example, when we introduce a major feature that had some kind of constraints to the logic of the API? So now, let's say that the client requests a version that doesn't have consistency groups, and now you want to delete volume requesting the older version, and the newer logic is telling you that you cannot do that. What is that?
So you're saying that the newer version doesn't support.
So a newer client created a consistency group. An older client comes in and wants to delete a volume.
And older client doesn't have a notion of this.
I have to draw it on a paper to see. It may be a problem or it may be not, but I'm not sure.
Server's going to have to build up close.
Yeah, it should. But the older client won't understand why. So
Yeah, I think it's kind of 400 bed requests or something.
Yeah.
that's thought.
No, that's a good thought. I
Maybe
mean,
it could confuse.
well, certainly, like when it comes up then in the review, that's where I don't know if there's a way to code around it or that's just a bad thing.
I don't see an opposite solution also. Probably we should leave it for there.
I think part of the answer is if you're using consistency groups, you can't go back that far.
Well, we have to support a baseline that is
The
going
baseline
to
is
not
already-
support the new
It's still
feature.
valid, next feature X. That's consistency groups as an example. But
Yeah.
if we have microversions, that's not going to be we already have.
Yeah,
Right.
right.
But
The
in
next
the
feature.
future, for example, we'll have some feature that a newer clients will have no constraints on older clients coming in and out. So, yeah, I don't know if there's anything.
Well, it's up to the person writing the new code to make sure that if whatever function is going to break, if you've created something with the new capability, that you have to catch that and issue the invalid response back. Which means reviewers are going to have to magically know that too.
Oh,
right?
well, this incentive when you delete one, if you're just talking about access group stuff, you cannot really delete one volume. You have to delete the whole group, so you can't even do that anyway.
Oh,
You can't get a list of those volumes?
Oh,
Oh, you can get a list.
Okay.
I
So you
mean,
can try and call it.
Example that
Yeah,
of such changing logic.
I'm just saying,
you just basically
That's an
just
example.
it's just like a new feature.
you can
a-
list
any
the volumes
feature.
and get them, and you can try and do it,
You can try.
right?
Oh, so I wonder.
What's that?
We can cover these in the test. We have a test.
Yeah, we just need
Yeah.
a plan to make sure we know what to look for.
Yeah.
Is there a policy on how many microversions before it becomes a major version?
No, I think Nova's policy is we'll never have another major version.
So we had a big discussion because we tried to get rid of the V1 API, and kind of the overall consensus is you can't ever get rid of an API. So since we can't ever get rid of an API, that's part of the thing pushing to use microversions. We're probably never going to go to a V3. We're going to stick on V2, and we're just going to have microversions.
We are kind of circumventing the version issue by this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every microversion is a new version.
Yeah. Yeah.
Behaviors, the API can change between two different microversions.
Yep.
So you've got
You
to
can
do
break one.
Create volume is doing A, B, C in microversion 1, and we do A, B, C, D, E, F in microversion 2.
Yes.
Additive changes are.
And microversion 1 still has to exist and still has to work as it did before.
And then adding to this point that you can create a volume
Yes.
in one and then you can delete it from
Yeah.
different microversions.
Right. And trying to take the action on D and E doesn't exist anymore. We need to account for that.
So
And
all these microversions need to be backward.
But how do you know that the volume is created in a newer version and when you delete it, you know that's not? I mean,
well, we don't know
It's
the
not- we're
volume
not
is.
sa-
It's
we're
just
not
it's a
saving-
theoretical that some extra action was taken that creates some other resource that wouldn't have existed prior. So it's you
so
actually
it's going to
need the volume
it will just
itself,
fail.
but
I think
more
there's no way.
Right?
the artifacts of what happened
Like
in
the
that
Attribute
version.
is added, it's
Right.
not there.
You create the volume
Yes.
with like the later version and you try to delete it with the older version.
Yeah.
No, it's not the
It can't-
volume itself. It's not the volume itself.
He used
So,
the consistency group example.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I was just trying to see how.
for example,
That's
the
a fail,
new
right?
microversion 2 creates some other resource as a side effect of the volume creation, right?
Mhm.
Well, the next request that comes in is going to request microversion 1. It obviously can't touch those new resources.
Right, but
But
what
we
if
need to
it?
make
What
sure
if
they're
it's
cleaned up?
Yeah.
My version will
Yeah.
delete where that's sensitive.
right? But what if it's not a new resource? It's an existing resource, like a volume. You just, you cannot do something else with that resource with no version now.
Well, you call delete on it, then if it's an invalid request because of the API, whoever's doing the delete work has to account for that and say, sorry, we can't do that.
So if you, best effort, like you can do, you should.
Yeah.
It's like sort of a concrete example when they're on into replicating consistency. The JNDF photos, presumably look at microversions and so whatever version we are at right now, you say any replication of volume. If that volume is in a consistency group, you're only replicating that one volume, not one group. Then we merge the change with that, then we have to post for consistency group replication. You go and say disable replication, you're going to disable replication for every volume.
Yeah.
So the code then needs to know, like,
Yeah.
I got called with
Yeah.
the V2.1.
Right. So those are
So I
not.
need to go disable
Just
just
not
the
trivial
volume,
things.
not the-
So not those are not saved in the database. So how how do you know that?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, do you even allow the replication of the single volume CD?
Right now we do.
Yeah, probably do.
In the future, we still allow it. We still allow it, yeah, if it's.
Yeah, that sounds like a bug to me.
Is the version number part of the volume metadata?
No.
How would you troubleshoot? Is it not? See, we may have, from a backend perspective, so in a certain version number, a create volume, we have a certain flag that we tell the backend to do something, some kind of a policy that we do. Down the lane, a new version comes in, and I have to delete this none. But the backend may have to do something different. I mean, now there's that,
So the version number affects which version of a function that inherits from which the controller is called. So in other words, create or attach or whatever. And at a newer version, you would have to call a new function in the drivers, say,
Right, but by
do special version 2.57 thing or something.
but now we may have to see, I created the volume and we were at version 10. Now we are at version 30. So that particular handling is gone now. We don't do that special handling anymore. But this volume that I created in the old version still needs a special activity on the back end, some kind of a cleanup or something that has to be done, which I'll know only if I know, okay, this was created with a special flag. How do I
You have
know
to store that somewhere, the volume table somewhere else.
But I don't think we're going to store the volume of the microversion.
No.
Not the microversion of the but if you've got some resource hanging off a volume that needs cleaning up, you need to store that back somewhere.
Yeah.
Right. But where would that, unless it's part of the volume metadata, the driver has no access.
The admin metadata, it might be placed. It depends what this thing is. Like we've been talking about hypothetical.
Yeah, it's a very high
Store it. We might create a new table for it. Depends what the thing is.
And it would be the responsibility of whoever's creating the new patch.
To make
To
sure
manage
that
that.
behavior is good.
Yes.
Well, are you going to associate the API microversion to the storage resources?
It depends.
Depends on the
we're stuck in hypotheticals.
Yeah, I don't know why.
If you're hanging some new resource off a volume, at the same time you create the volume with the new request, you need to store that tag somewhere and make sure old delete and new delete do the cleanup correctly.
But
Shouldn't the version are as
But the old version still has to do the sensible right thing. That's the thing. So
Yeah,
you
but-
might end up creating the old version.
But in that example, isn't the sensible thing to do the same thing no matter what? If you get called by the old version, you still clean up the new resource. If you get called by the new version, you clean up the new resource. So
Totally, yes.
you're not going to have any differentiation. So I'm not sure it really is. I mean,
I think the argument there though is for them doing
no, because the old version says delete, and so whatever needs to be done to delete is done. If you've got old server, there is no new thingy, so it's a delete. And if there's a new server and you created this new thingy, you have to delete the new thingy as well, which you have to do no matter what. So there's no change. In this example, there may be an example that causes a problem.
You can't
but
store
it
the
isn't one.
resources. When you create the new change, then you have to modify the old behavior.
I'm looking at the version, like the API version history of Nova, and actually they are removing things in microversions. For example, they added new API call for remote consoles, and they are removing the convenience console stuff from that. So,
do we have any guidelines for the API?
I would probably say.
There was a thread about the name of the microversion header, which I read like 40 of them, and I didn't get to the final suspenseful answer. Because they were like, shouldn't we just have one name for all the services? And then, but no, it's better to have. So I'll just send them a ping and say, what did you guys decide? But I don't think there's anything else. I mean, the TC says, yeah, this is good. Everyone should go to it, and I think the API working group is happy with it. I don't know of any big battles.
So I think the good thing, though, is that we don't have to solve every last theoretical problem because we've introduced microversions. Right?
It's basically the same problems you have if you're going to choose
Yeah.
the API. It just allows a way to have older clients get the older semantics, newer clients who ask for it get the newer.
There
Yes.
are many API changes you can't make even with microversions.
There are things that
Yeah.
still can't be done, it doesn't solve all problems, but it does allow changes, and then clients who are aware of them to consume them. And then clients who aren't can get the old behavior because you always support the old behavior.
And I think we still want to be mildly resistant to microversion. Just if we can microversion, then we should.
Yes, it's gonna add a lot more overhead in a lot of places.
Yeah.
Testing, reviewing.
So,
I guess this Nova example of removing, it does allow us a little more flexibility if we have these smaller version differences. If we get to the point where something's been deprecated and we have a little more confidence that the clients out there will be able to handle the API without having to switch completely, like they would switch from V1 to V2.
Right.
So it does open up the ability
Client
that we
knows they
actually
can handle
get
it
rid of
because they're asking for it.
Yeah.
So they're not going to get some surprise because they explicitly say, I want version 2.37, which doesn't have the old thing, but that's okay because the client knows that's why they're asking for 2.37,
Yeah.
right? So
So we might it might help cleaning up in the long run as well.
And will these all get promoted to 3 at some point?
No.
Or just no?
there's no need to promote it.
Unless there's some major change in
So
Yeah.
during,
The reason that
during a release, will all APIs be at the same version? Same microversion?
No, you mean between services,
Between the APIs?
like from Nova to Cinder?
Within the Cinder itself, there are multiple APIs now. Will they all be in the same version?
It's only
Like
the
create volume and delete volume, will they all be in the highest version? Will it be all the same?
no, there's one version for Cinder.
So if you change create to have something new, you write some code in there that says, version less than 2.15, create, which is old, supports the old stuff. Version greater than or equal to 2.15, new. And that's the pain is you have to support the old version, so you've got old code.
And that means Cinder 2.15 now means that create. So read only one API version.
And then if you change delete, you got to bump it again to 2.16.
There's always only one latest version.
And every change is a microversion bump, which you can have many, many microversion bumps before you release Mitaka or N or whatever. Every single change is a bump, just to kind of help.
So what is the benefit of that over creating microversion for
Because you don't know when you're going to be done. You can't just say, oh, Sean, don't forget before we cut the release to bump the microversion.
Well, it's not
that-
that
that-
also, it's for those who are doing continuous.
Well, yeah, absolutely. We're supposed to be ready anytime. You can consume us whenever they're ready.
Which is why we have the fallback built in.
Right.
So on a release, we don't change anything, and the V2 APIs will just call the highest version of the microversion.
If they're asking for that, or they get the fallback, it'll fall. Depending on what you're asking.
If you explicitly ask for something, you get it. If you ask for nothing, you get V2. You get what you have now.
The default is the
What do you use it for?
Default is the
The
lowest.
default is the lowest, basically, right, as we should.
As we should. Right now, what we have, V2, is the default. If you ask for nothing, that's what you get.
So it's forever, they will be using V2 if they don't really know
Correct.
what's there in the microversion.
Correct.
That's right.
Absolutely.
So they'll always get old behavior unless we document all the microversions.
Yes. Yep.
But people balked when we wanted to deprecate V1 because they said we're still using V1. Well, if you're still using V1, we have to support it, but that just shows that people aren't. If you don't want to consume the latest and greatest, we can't make you, and that's okay.
But if somebody wants to use a newer version, they have to go through all the documentation and see what affects them, and which they have to pick a version.
Or you could just use the client.
Nothing to say that we can't go actually rather than in the version do a high.
So there is
version,
there is a latest. It's used.
Not the latest label. I saw an email thread where people were saying don't do that.
Yeah, they had problems in vanilla.
We can when we go to cut M, right? We can go Python client, just say here, 2.74 is the highest stable. Use this as a
What does
default
Nova do
version.
in that respect? Because then, in order to get the base default, you'd have to specifically ask for it then. So an older version of Nova, per se, uses the new client, but doesn't ask for a version, they get a new one that they can't support. That's why it
and we
always
get
falls
the-
back to the default, which is where they ship. And that is always there, it's always the default. Otherwise, you're effectively upgrading the minimum version to whatever that release was, which is breaking compatibility.
Then, obviously this would be overridable, right? So Nova could override that and say,
The new Nova do, yes. The problem is the Nova that shipped 2 years ago.
So it sounds like there's no problem. Like,
Yeah,
if
there's
you
no
know,
problem.
if you know you want a newer version,
That's why
ask
it's
for
not
it.
strange.
So Sean Day wrote a good post that talks, that gives use cases. And if you check it out, it does a good job of saying, here's 4 different users, here's somebody who wants cutting edge, here's someone who's stuck on Diablo, here's, some other case. Right?
Yeah.
So as far as the opt-in for the Cinder shell client, how is that handled there? Because if you add new features, how do you ever tell that shell client to use it? You have to make people type new I want version parameters.
Well, when we when we ship 1.5 version of the Cinder client, it will ask for API version 2. Whatever to get the new features.
But then you have a compatibility problem the other way unless you can negotiate that.
Well, but it negotiates. I mean, that's part of.
Does it?
That's part
Well,
of the hard.
it's the code I've got to write. That's what's hard is, and that's why, caching is an optimization, but in Vision there's no caching. It hits the endpoint to find out what's the highest supported version of the server, and it asks for the highest version supported by both, or nothing. If the server doesn't respond and it can't support microversions, the client has to know to not ask for that.
I just want to make sure that we wouldn't end up with a very confusing shell.
Well,
Sounds good.
if the shell can be, the smarts can be put in the shell. So
Yeah, well, it sounds like that kind of solves it.
right. So ultimately, the shell can even know that the client, if the server doesn't support it, to fail the command or unsupported, it's 403 or.
Yes.
At some point, somebody using the shell will have to say what version they want.
I don't think so.
No,
No.
the
The
shell
shell
can,
itself instantiates the client.
Okay, so
Yeah.
we would pin that in.
And then the negotiation takes over.
That's
the
right.
shell knows its highest supported version, and it seeks the highest from the server, and whatever the minimum of those two is where it operates. And if the minimum is version 2, then you get version 2 because the server doesn't support what the client is capable of.
Are you going to tell the shell, I want a specific version so that that you add some new column of data? I don't want to see that. I'm doing something that's actually parsing the response, and
I think
That sounds kind of outside of the scope of what the shell client is for.
I'm fine with that.
my answer is kind of maybe, like you might want some way to, but I think you just have to write your own client, do it.
I think in general for that kind of thing, you're going to be
Well,
expected.
people using the SDK.
So I think, the difficult part though is that, say for example, a new feature is added, right? You run Cinder help. Does that actually call the service to find out what the version is reported in order to show the help thing?
If it were really good smart help,
No, you have to just show all of them because you have to be able to look at that when you don't even know what cloud you want to talk to.
but that's the way it is today, right? If you have an old server and you download the latest client, it's going to say, oh, here's some consistency group commands, but they don't work because your server doesn't support it.
Right.
And you can make the request to the client will queue the server.
But that's
Actually,
exactly what you have today,
I don't think it
though, right?
should, because that's not a user thing. I don't think the shell should be saying this only works if you get version 2.42, because users are going to know that.
Right.
Right, but that's what the client does today, right? If you
Yeah, no, it's just
Yeah.
The reason why you might want to say that is so that when they try it and it doesn't work, they go,
Well, you say that in the error message if they run it and like fail, maybe.
A couple of times people have answered that saying, can we query the service during election support to give better help in the climate? But no one's ever stepped up to provide that. That will affect the policy and that sort of thing. Policy affects what you plan to do and your current goals affect what
That's
you
a new API you could add.
I mean, that sounds like a great idea, but I would just call it like Cinder, get what I can do and not Cinder help. I wouldn't call it that, but I call it something like that.
The one other thing I just thought of is, do we want to support Cinder being able to pin, the server being able to pin an active version of the sports config file? The use case being, if I've got 3 clouds in my company and I'm upgrading them slowly, I might want to pin to a lowest common denominator so that people don't write code for cloud 1 and then try to figure out cloud 2 and 3 yet.
Yeah, there could be other uses for that too, where if you wanted to use it to mitigate a security vulnerability or something. That was a new
the logic's easy in the implementation that I've written. It's pretty easy to say.
It seems like a good idea.
Can you preclude a specific, like somebody said something about a security issue? If there's a security issue in one microversion,
I think
not support that.
No, if we have to introduce API changes to fix security holes, we've done something really. I was just saying if you wanted to block one temporarily and then you fixed it without an API change.
So we are over. There's in 4 minutes is a new session. Just to point that out. We can keep talking. You can take breaks for in 4 minutes. Something else.